So not prepared for something that administrations have been talking about for decades?
Yeah, look, this is reporting from CNN's Zach Cohen, Phil Mattingly, Kevin Liptak, and Kylie Atwood. And it gets into just how problematic what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz, which of course is one of the world's most important energy chokeholds in the country. It's responsible for 20% of the global crude oil that comes out of that very key waterway. And what they're learning, our colleagues, is that essentially that while key officials from the Department of Energy and the Department of Treasury were present for a lot of these briefings, what is typical in planning for something of this magnitude, an operation, military operation of this magnitude in the Middle East, they said that the agency analysis and forecast that would be integral elements of the decision-making process in past administrations were secondary considerations here. Now, I think one of the key things is what the administration is actually going to do about this, John. And what we've heard from top officials and what our colleagues are hearing from their sources involved in some of the planning on this is that it could be weeks before the Trump administration's efforts to really try and alleviate the impact of what is happening in the Strait can actually take effect. We have heard many officials kind of talk about the possibility of having the U.S. Navy go in and escort some of these oil tankers and ships through the Strait to make sure they're safer. But that is very high risk. And that is something that we've now heard as well from top officials like the Energy Secretary Chris Wright noting that it can be very dangerous to do that. Meanwhile, we've heard from the president kind of trying to downplay some of the tumult we've seen with energy and what has been happening in the Strait. Now, I do want to reference what we heard from the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent yesterday. He was speaking with Sky News, and he said that the escorts from the U.S. Navy will begin, quote, as soon as it is militarily possible. He said that was their planning, and there's a chance that the U.S. Navy or perhaps an international coalition could ultimately escort these tankers through. We also heard, just speaking on this idea of preparedness and the lack thereof that our colleagues are reporting on, we did hear from the White House, a spokeswoman, Anna Kelly. This is what she told CNN. She said, through a detailed planning process, the entire administration is and was prepared for any potential action taken by the terrorist Iranian regime. She went on to say that the president has been clear that any disruptions to energy are temporary and will result in a benefit to our country. That has really been the line we've heard from this White House, that what is happening right now with oil is temporary. But all to say, we do know that energy executives as well are kind of trying to play it safe right now. They do not want to be sending their oil tankers through, risking lives, risking their ships at this moment. So this is a problem that is likely going to continue for a long time until the administration can figure out how to safely, escort these ships and reopen the Strait in a way that is safe for everyone. John?
Secretary of Energy Chris Wright told Kate yesterday they were not yet ready to escort these fuel tankers through the Strait. General, the reporting is that somehow the administration, the National Security Council, the Pentagon maybe underestimated what Iran was willing to do in the Strait. How could that be when I know that a Strait closure has been near doctrine in the U.S. for decades?
John, I was very surprised by those, that reporting as well. In my experience, and I've spent, a couple of decades working in the Central Command area of responsibility, to include being part of, the development and the review of the concepts of operations to address the threats that Iran poses to the region and specifically the Strait. So I believe that CENTCOM certainly had this as a potential response option based on, offensive operations into Iran. So now the fact that potentially all the capability to start clearing the Strait to allow freedom of navigation, and we may have to have additional capabilities build up to include, similar to what we had with Prosperity Guardian, to rely on our coalition partners in the Gulf states and our allies from NATO to assist. That may be forthcoming.
Let's listen to what the Secretary just said about the Strait of Hormuz.
They are exercising sheer desperation in the Straits of Hormuz. Something we're dealing with, we have been dealing with it, and don't need to worry about it. We're on plan to defeat, destroy, disable all of their meaningful military capabilities at a pace the world has never seen before. the only thing prohibiting transit in the Straits right now is Iran shooting at shipping. It is open for transit should Iran not do that. Now, there's a reason why we chose, as one of our primary objectives, destroy the Navy. We understood the ability to interdict shipping is something Iran has done for 40 years. It's key terrain. They've used it as leverage. The world is seeing what they'll do to fight back in that context. And so we've heard them talk about taking various measures, and we're planning for all of them. So we have a plan for every option here. We're working with our interagency partners, and that's not a strait we're going to allow to remain contested or with a lack of flow of commercial goods. So we're aware of that. We're laser focused on our military objectives, but also want to make sure our partners across this government understand we're working with you to make sure that energy flows. And that's an important part.
Let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz. It's really become the center of this war right now, and maybe more than anything else, this seems to be bringing the battle home for the American people. Do you agree?
Well, absolutely. And a lot of people may be puzzled by it. They say, look, that's a conflict way over there. The United States does produce a lot of oil and gas. So why is the cost going up at my corner gas station? First of all, because that is also a big oil and gas region. A lot of petroleum products there, from the UAE to Saudi Arabia, a huge producer, Kuwait, Iraq, and Iran itself. And almost all of it has to come through this thin ribbon of water down here and pass through the very tight Strait of Hormuz. About 3,000 ships a month, about 20 million barrels of oil a day. And Iran, as you noted above, Jake, is really putting a lot of military pressure on those ships and, in effect, slamming the gates shut there at the strait and letting almost nothing through.
We've heard about the effort to mine the strait, sea mines by the Iranians. What do we know about Iran's ability, their capability to do that?
We know that they have a lot of mines, and they're not the old mines that you see in World War II movies. For example, they have this type of mine, which is called an influence mine. This is just one type. This sort of mine is much more modern. It sits underwater, and it basically takes readings on what's passing above, so that if a small boat or ship goes by, it may ignore it. But if a big tanker goes by, and that's what it's been tuned to, that's when it may detonate. It will be enough to destroy it? We don't know. How many are out there? We don't know. But that uncertainty alone is also contributing to the notion that none of these ships that ought to be going out are doing so. Jake?
Tom, most of the oil from the strait goes to Asia, notably to China. So why is it impacting the U.S. this way?
Yeah, almost none of it comes to the United States. But the problem is oil is traded on a world market. Once it gets out there, it's basically being all mixed together and traded. So if I were to put barrels in the back of our warehouse here and make them represent all the oil being traded in the world, 20% of it is now not passing through the Strait of Hormuz. You simply cannot remove that much from the market without affecting shipping and trade and manufacturing. And yeah, absolutely, what all of you are likely to pay this weekend when you go to gas up your car.